Hello. As we move forward looking at the Unitrends Certified Administrator Training, we want to talk a little bit about ransomware and how Unitrends can help arm you so that you can thrive and survive in the face of this threat. So we're going to talk about the Ransomware Survival Kit powered by Unitrends. Now, previously we talked about the Unitrends Unified BCDR platform where you can protect anything, recover where and how you need, automate it, and then do it through a centrally managed portal. It's going to encompass several different products that we're going to highlight as we walk through the toolbox today. Once again, Unitrends, Spanning, Dark Web Monitoring, Graphis, and Uniview. We're going to look at 5 different aspects that the Unitrends Unified BCDR platform can provide to you to help you be resilient in the face of a ransomware world. We're going to look at how we can protect your data, how it will be secure, the importance of detection, testing, and then how you can recover. So let's start with protecting your data and look at what we can do. Protection starts with protecting the data the right way, whether that's with VM level protection, file, image level agent, application agent for things like SQL and SharePoint, bare metal protection for our physical systems where we can recover into dissimilar hardware, and then even endpoint backup where we protect those infrequent connectors and remote users. A large part of protect is being able to utilize the appliance or the agent to be able to back up and protect that data and then get it off site in an immutable fashion. So we can do this through a couple of different ways. We can use air-gapped media where we can write out to an external disk or tape and then simply remove that from the network. We can increase the level of automation and reduce the amount of touches that you have by utilizing the Unitrends Forever Cloud, where we can write data to the Unitrends Forever Cloud, replicating it from the appliance, ensuring that it can't be touched, edited, or deleted from the local appliance. Inside of Spanning, we're also going to be able to think about this idea of an immutable copy, where we are actually backing up from our tenant and backing up into an AWS bucket that once again can't be touched, edited, or deleted. All of this works so that we know that we are backed up, isolated, offsite, and immutable. Another part of the protection strategy is going to be Helix. As we discussed earlier, Helix is an automation platform to help us remediate backup issues. If we think about Helix in terms of protection, Helix is going to make sure that we have good backups every night that aren't going to be failing because of VSS issues. They're not going to be failing because the appliance is not up to date. What this does is it gives us a long continuous chain of restore points that doesn't have gaps. When hit with ransomware, the ability to restore to the point in time that matters without gap means that you're going to ensure the loss. Also, we can think about the idea that we want to manage all of this together as well. It doesn't do us a lot of good to back up and protect systems if we can't actually manage the environments across multiple locations, multiple appliances, and multiple products. So we can utilize Uniview, and then we can deploy Backup IQ. Once again, think about eliminating the noise, eliminating the gaps, and increasing evidence that you know that your backups are working. That's where play. And then on top of that, we can utilize some of the other components out there to protect data outside of the local environment. Spanning will allow us to protect your tenant environments. Endpoint backup helps us use an agent-based backup that backs up directly to the cloud and uses a profile-driven strategy to help us understand that we're protecting those laptops and desktops and remote servers, and then also giving you the ability to recover those. Unitrends is a secure platform. So when we start thinking about secure, the first place of security that we look at is the appliance itself, where we can encrypt the data. We can use Uniview to enforce two-factor authentication. It is a purpose-built Linux appliance. That simply means that we sit outside of the Windows attack surface, and that gives you confidence that your backups are immune from those ransomware attacks. Similarly, Spanning's got his own security features that are going to help keep the data secure, encrypted data, two-factor authentication. We also talk about the fact that spanning utilizes OAuth 2. That simply means that we are utilizing the hierarchy and credential structure that's part of the tenant, and we access that tenant to be able to do the things that we do. You don't need to give me a dedicated user. You don't need to take that dedicated user and give him elevated rights. We work within the structure that's already there. Spanning is a point-in-time backup that utilizes a cloud-to-cloud strategy. We back up from your tenant into AWS, and with that, we get the advantages of some of the security that comes along with AWS, particularly that we can allow you to manage your own key. That helps you with your compliance and your regulatory pieces as well. When we move into talking about detect, we're going to take a look at a few different products. The first of which is built into the Unitrends appliance, where we use a predictive analytics engine that's constantly watching for changes in the environment. What's really going on here is that we use these metrics such as change rate, compression rate, growth rate, entropy, that looks at the amount of random behavior in the backup. And we understand what normal is. The predictive analytics engine helps us understand that and recognize anomalies. When you get hit with ransomware, those metrics I just talked about, they all jump off the page. And so we recognize that, and then we identify when and where that took place. Now, I always point out here that if you're paying attention, none of you will ever have a ransomware attack that says it took place in 1969 like this one does. It was manufactured in my lab. But it's an important part of the puzzle because it points you down the path of when you're going to be, when you need to recover. You know what was impacted, you know when it was impacted. So now you know where to start when you look at recovery. Now we're going to talk about how we can tie this into another component here shortly, but right now we're looking at the idea that we understand when and where the impact took place. We can then talk about how we can use Graphus as an AI-based phish defense platform to understand and stop phishing attacks and get in front of those. The experts say that the majority of ransomware attacks actually start with a phishing attack. So with Graphus, we use over 50 metrics. We use an AI engine to watch and monitor those metrics and see how your tenant and your users are interacting. And then we can identify, isolate, and quarantine those threats, and we can do all of that on zero-day threats. With all of this, there's a few features built in that our customers really enjoy. The first of which allows you to engage your end users, where they can simply click on safe or unsafe inside of a header and identify whether or not an email needs some more attention. We can also talk about that there's an internal and external spoofing protection. This is to help make sure that when the boss's boss sends out that email that says, I want you to wire $150,000, that it actually is the boss's boss and that you really should be wiring that money. The dark web monitoring is an important part of your ransomware strategy as well. Think about access to your environment. Dark web monitoring watches the dark web, identifies when your user credentials are out there in the wild, and then lets you know about that vulnerability so that you can work around that and change it. What dark web monitoring does is it makes sure that the bad guys aren't accessing your environment. If the bad guys are accessing your environment, the door is wide open, and the damage that they can do with a ransomware attack is pretty much unmitigated. As we move forward and we think about testing, this is where we get to start talking about the automation that's built into the Unitrends platform. At the heart of this is what we call recovery assurance. So we'll spend some focused energy as we move through the course looking at how we set this up, how we configure it, and how it helps. But recovery assurance at a very high level allows you to do an automated DR test, proactively detect your recovery issues, use an orchestrated failover, and then use SLA compliance reports to make sure that you're meeting all of your goals. Recovery assurance is going to be used to help remove excuses. Testing takes time, it disrupts, it costs us money. We do all of that through automation, and we can do that locally and in the cloud. That may mean on the appliance, but that also may mean inside of your virtual environment. We increase the confidence by understanding obstacles, providing reports that allow you to understand exactly what you can recover and how long it'll take, verifying and then certifying our recovery points. No more guessing. And then enabling resiliency, where we can have an orchestrated recovery update and patch verification inside of Instant Lab, make sure that we don't introduce something that's going to harm our environment. But we can use that Instant Lab piece and focus on something that has kind of emerged with ransomware. We can take a look at how we can use that Instant Lab and focus on post-restore sandbox insurance verification. Now, I'm going to paint the scene for you here. A Unitrends customer, sizable, we're talking about data centers on multiple continents. They got hit with ransomware, and we're talking to the tune of several hundred VMs, just short of 800. And it was catastrophic. So they were ready to start recovering, and they were moving towards that when they started looking at their insurance documents for their cyber insurance. And the cyber insurance said that they needed to be able to test the restore points for malware to be able to collect on them. So what happened is that as this event unfolded, Unitrends was able to help them use orchestrated recovery using Instant Lab, where we spun up the restores inside of an isolated environment. So we spun up the VMs, did so in isolation, and then the customer was able to actually attach Carbon Black, where they did their own third-party verification that they were clean, and then able to actually push those restores from that isolated part of the environment into the production environment and do so in a matter of just a few clicks. What we're really looking at is that not only are we talking about testing backups, but now we're talking about testing restores so that we can collect the insurance money. At the end of the day, literally at the end of the day, they recovered their VMs, they tested them, and then they were able to recover all of the insurance funds that went along with that. So it was definitely a day. There were a lot of things that were taking place, and it was very stressful for them. But at the end of the day, with an exclamation point, they're able to say that they collected all of their insurance money and that Unitrends enabled them to do so. Recovery isn't a key part of this, and we'll spend a lot of time through the course talking about recovery. But at a high level, we can understand that we can do file level recovery, very granular, instant recovery of VMs. Then we can use orchestrated recovery with the data copy access job that we just spoke about inside of recovery assurance, where we can actually spin up a large group of VMs and do that in an orchestrated fashion. We can always replicate from one appliance to another appliance and do so at the secondary site. Or we can utilize the Unitrends cloud, where we have a white glove DR as a service that allows us to actually spin up and recover there and utilize those cloud resources in the event that we've had a very bad day. Now, these are all topics that we will cover in much more detail as we move forward. As we look at these topics, think about and keep in mind that what we're doing is helping you be armed so that you can survive a ransomware attack and utilize the tools that are built into the Unitrends Unified BCDR platform to make that happen. Thank you.